15 pristine luxury SUVs were trapped bumper to bumper on my private oak-lined driveway, while a woman in oversized sunglasses sank her expensive high heels into my lawn, screaming at my house to open the solid steel gate. I was sitting comfortably at my second-floor window, sipping freshly brewed coffee with a heavy remote control resting in my left hand. She had no idea that just past my stone walls, a fleet of 5 rusted tow trucks was already dropping their hydraulics to block any chance of escape. My name is Marcus. I'm 46, and as a project manager, I appreciate a flawlessly executed operation. For 6 agonizing months, these elite private school parents treated my home like their personal VIP valet line, flicking hot cigar ash onto my grass without a shred of decency. But before I show you how much cash it cost them to rescue $2 million of entitled German engineering from a dirty impound lot, you need to see the breaking point. Because when you arrogantly trap me on my own land, I don't just call the police. I lock the cage and let the tow trucks do the talking. Listen to me, because I need you to understand exactly how insane people can get when they think the world is their personal waiting room. You know that feeling, right? That feeling when someone does something so unbelievably rude, but they do it with a smile like they are doing you a favor. That is what I dealt with for 6 agonizing months. I live at the end of a very long private driveway. It is a beautiful property that I worked my entire life to afford. The driveway is practically a winding country road flanked by old oak trees, and it leads right up to my house. It is secluded. It is quiet. Or at least it was supposed to be, until the elite private academy down the street decided to expand their enrollment by 200 students without expanding their parking lot. Suddenly, my serene oak-lined driveway became the unofficial VIP pickup lane for the most entitled, insufferable parents on the planet. It started with just one car, a massive, gleaming, white luxury sport utility vehicle that looked like a military tank designed by a pretentious interior decorator. It was parked right inside my property line. I was sitting on my porch drinking my morning coffee, and I watched this woman idle her engine for 20 minutes. The exhaust was killing my hydrangeas. I walked down the driveway to politely let her know she was on private property. Big mistake. This was my introduction to Brenda. I do not know if her name was actually Brenda, but she possessed the spiritual essence of a Brenda. She rolled down her window exactly 2 inches. She was wearing these oversized sunglasses that covered half her face, making her look like a judgmental praying mantis. Her lips were pursed so tightly, they practically disappeared. Before I could even finish saying hello, she cut me off. She used that high-pitched, fake sweet voice that makes you want to punch a hole through a wall. She said, "Oh, sweetie, I'm just waiting for my son Oliver to get out of lacrosse practice. It will just be a minute." I told her this was a private driveway and she needed to move. She let out this breathy little chuckle like I had just told a hilarious joke. She rolled her window up in my face, just slowly buzzed it up while maintaining eye contact. I stood there staring at my own reflection in her tinted glass, feeling my blood pressure spike. She did not leave for another 15 minutes. I thought it was a one-time thing, but I was so wrong. Word must have spread through the country club gossip network, because by the next week my driveway was entirely colonized. Every weekday at exactly 2:30 in the afternoon, a parade of absurdly expensive vehicles would roll past my no trespassing signs. We are talking high-end German engineering, pristine British off-roaders that have never seen a speck of dirt, and whatever Italian monstrosities cost more than my entire house. There were easily 10 to 15 of them every single day. They would line up bumper to bumper all the way down my driveway, treating it like an exclusive valet line. They blocked me in completely. If my house had caught on fire, the fire trucks would have had to politely wait for little Timmy to finish his cello lesson before they could put out the flames. The absolute disrespect of these people was staggering. They were not just parking. They were treating my property like a public park. I watched mothers get out of their cars and stand in my front yard comparing their tennis bracelets while their tiny designer dogs peed on my mailbox. I found trash everywhere. Half-empty iced lattes with complicated foam requests written on the side, crumpled-up organic kale chip bags, and so many discarded wet wipes. One afternoon, I walked out to find a guy in a tailored suit, leaning against his shiny black sports car, smoking a cigar and flicking the ashes directly onto my lawn. I lost it. I marched down there and demanded he leave. He looked at me like I was a peasant who had wandered away from the fields. He took a slow drag from his cigar, blew the smoke in my general direction, and said, "Relax, buddy. We are just picking up the kids. Where else are we supposed to go?" I told him I did not care where he went, but he could not stay here. He smirked, tossed his cigar butt onto my grass, and got in his car. But he did not leave. He just sat there with the engine running, blasting some awful motivational podcast. The breaking point happened on a Tuesday. I had a massive flight to catch. My best friend was getting married across the country, and I was the best man. I had my suit packed, my speech written, and my bags loaded into my sedan. I needed to leave for the airport at 3:00. I opened my garage door, and my heart sank into my stomach. The driveway was entirely blocked, not just a little bit blocked. It was a solid wall of imported steel and leather interiors stretching all the way to the main road. I counted 14 cars. Brenda was at the front of the pack, idling in her stupid white tank. I grabbed my suitcase, ran down the driveway, and started knocking on windows. I was begging them to move. I explained I had a flight. I explained I was in a wedding. Brenda rolled down her window that signature 2 inches. She looked at my suitcase, then looked at me. She did her little fake laugh and said, "Oh, I am so sorry. But if I move, I will lose my spot in the queue, and Oliver has a piano recital tonight. We are in a terrible rush." I stared at her. My brain literally could not process the level of selfishness radiating from this woman. I told her I would call the police. She smiled and said, "Go ahead. They will not get here before 3:15 anyway." She was right. The police department in our town was notoriously slow for non-emergency calls. I ended up missing my flight. I missed the rehearsal dinner. I had to pay $800 for a red-eye flight the next morning, and I barely made it to the ceremony looking like a zombie. Sitting in that airport terminal eating a stale turkey sandwich at 2 in the morning, I made a promise to myself. I was not just going to stop them. I was going to ruin them. I wanted them to feel the exact same helplessness I felt standing in my driveway with my suitcase. I did not want a temporary fix. I wanted vengeance. The next week, I started doing my research. I found a company that installs heavy-duty commercial gates, not those flimsy wooden farm gates that you can push open. I wanted a fortress. I ordered a custom wrought-iron retractable gate with steel reinforced posts. The beautiful thing about my property is that the entrance from the street is flanked by thick stone walls and dense, thorny bushes. If you block that entrance, there is literally no other way out. It is a natural bottleneck. I scheduled the installation for a 3-day weekend when the school was closed for some obscure teacher's planning holiday. The crew worked around the clock. We dug deep trenches, poured concrete foundations, and wired the whole thing to a secure remote control system. The gate slid perfectly behind the stone walls when it was open, making it completely invisible from the street. You would never even know it was there. I also installed 4 high-definition security cameras, perfectly angled to capture every single license plate and every single facial expression, but the gate was only half the trap. Trapping them was the appetizer. The main course was getting rid of them. I spent hours calling towing companies in the area. Most of them were too polite or worried about liability when I mentioned the types of cars involved. They did not want the headache of scratching a $200,000 vehicle. Then I found a guy named Mike. Mike owned a tow yard on the industrial side of town. Mike did not care about designer paint jobs. Mike cared about impound fees. I explained my situation to him. I told him I had a private driveway that was illegally occupied every day by 15 luxury cars. I told him I was installing a gate to lock them in, and I needed someone ready to haul them all away at once. Mike went dead silent on the phone for a solid 10 seconds. I thought he hung up. Then he let out a laugh that sounded like rocks grinding together in a cement mixer. He said, "Buddy, I will bring the whole fleet. We signed an exclusive towing contract right there. Mike gave me a direct line to his dispatch and promised me that when I gave the word, he would have his trucks waiting around the corner like a tactical strike team." The trap was set. The following Monday, I woke up with a feeling of absolute electric anticipation. It was like Christmas morning, but instead of presents, I was getting pure, unfiltered, petty revenge. I brewed a large pot of premium coffee. I pulled a comfortable chair up to my second-floor window, which gave me a perfect bird's-eye view of the entire driveway. I had my gate remote in my left hand and my phone with Mike's number queued up in my right. At exactly 2:15, the invasion began. First came a silver crossover driven by a guy who always parked exactly 1 foot onto my grass. Then came a sleek black sports utility vehicle. Then one by one, the rest of the armada rolled in. By 2:30, the driveway was packed. I counted 15 cars total. And right at the front, leading the pack like the queen of the damned, was Brenda in her giant white tank. She parked right in her usual spot, threw it in park, and started applying a fresh coat of horrible bright pink lipstick in her rearview mirror. They were entirely inside my property line. All 15 of them safely past the stone walls. I took a deep breath. I took a sip of my coffee. It tasted incredible. I pressed the green button on my remote. Down at the end of the driveway, the heavy steel gate silently glided out from behind the stone walls. It slid perfectly across the entrance and locked into the opposite post with a loud, heavy metallic clank. It was beautiful, a solid 8-foot-high barrier of unforgiving black steel. They were officially in the cage. I immediately hit send on my phone. Mike answered on the first ring. I said, "Bring them in." "Mike, the geese are in the pen." Mike just grunted and hung up. For the first 5 minutes, nobody noticed. They were all busy staring at their phones, drinking their lattes, and ignoring the world. The first person to realize something was wrong was the guy at the very back of the line near the gate. He was trying to back out a few inches to adjust his angle, and his rearview camera must have shown him the massive iron bars. I watched him step out of his car looking incredibly confused. He walked up to the gate and jiggled the lock. He looked around like he expected a valet attendant to magically appear and open it for him. He waved his arms at the car in front of him. Soon, 3 other parents were out of their cars, standing by the gate, pointing and scratching their heads. The confusion slowly rippled up the line until it reached Brenda. She noticed the commotion in her mirror. She opened her door, stepped down from her massive vehicle, and started strutting down the driveway. She was wearing these ridiculous high-heeled boots that kept sinking into my soft grass. I could hear her voice carrying all the way up to my window. She was yelling, asking who shut the gate, and demanding that whoever did it open it right this second, because Oliver was going to be late for his tutor. I could not resist. I opened my window, leaned out, and yelled down to them. I said, "Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, this is private property, and you are trespassing." The silence that fell over that driveway was deafening. All 15 heads snapped up to look at me. Brenda's face went through a remarkable series of emotions. First surprise, then confusion, then a deep, dark shade of crimson that usually indicates a stroke. The veins actually popped out on her neck. She marched back up to the front of her car directly below my window. She put her hands on her hips and screamed, "What do you think you are doing? Open that gate right now." Her fake, sweet voice was completely gone. She sounded like a screeching tire. I smiled down at her. I said, "Oh, I am so sorry, Brenda. But if I open the gate, I will lose my peace and quiet, and I am in a terrible rush to do absolutely nothing in my own home today." I used her exact words. I know it was petty. I do not care. It felt amazing. She started losing her mind. She screamed that I was holding them hostage. She threatened to call the police. I told her I highly encouraged that because the police would love to see 15 cars trespassing on clearly marked private property. I reminded her that they might take a while to get here anyway, just like she told me the week before. The panic started setting in among the crowd. A guy in a tailored suit started yelling that he was a lawyer and he was going to sue me for everything I owned. A woman in yoga pants started crying, saying her dog was going to get anxious if they did not leave. It was a symphony of entitlement, and I was the conductor. Then the heavy cavalry arrived. I heard the deep rumbling of diesel engines before I saw them. Down on the main street, a fleet of 5 massive, heavy-duty tow trucks pulled up and parked along the curb. They were ugly, scratched up, and covered in rust. They looked like mechanical beasts of prey. Mike stepped out of the lead truck. He was a mountain of a man wearing dirty coveralls and chewing on a toothpick. He walked up to the gate on the outside and looked through the bars at the trapped parents. He looked up at my window. I hit the button to open the gate just wide enough for the tow trucks to back in. When the gate slid open, the lawyer guy tried to make a break for it. He ran to his car and threw it in drive, trying to squeeze past the first tow truck. Mike just stood there, crossed his arms, and let his driver position the massive tow rig diagonally, completely blocking the exit. The lawyer slammed on his brakes inches from the heavy steel bumper of the tow truck. Mike walked over, tapped on the lawyer's window, and yelled, "Step out of the vehicle, buddy. This car is being impounded. The absolute chaos that erupted over the next 20 minutes was something I will cherish on my deathbed." The tow truck operators were a machine. They did not listen to excuses. They did not care about tears. They did not care that somebody was late for a spa appointment. They backed up, dropped their hydraulics, hooked up the tires, and hoisted those pristine luxury cars into the air with zero hesitation. Brenda was screaming at the top of her lungs. She actually threw her iced coffee at one of the tow truck drivers. The cup bounced off his shoulder, splashing beige liquid all over the door of her pristine white car. The driver did not even flinch. He just wiped his shoulder, looked at her dead in the eye, and said, "That is an assault charge, lady. Back away, or I call the cops myself." He hooked up her front wheels, and the heavy chains clanked loudly against the undercarriage. You could hear the hydraulic whine lifting her massive tank right off the ground. She fell to her knees, crying real tears over her beautiful, precious vehicle. As each tow truck filled up, it would pull out onto the main street, and another one would back in. Mike had orchestrated a perfect relay system. The parents were forced to stand on my lawn watching helplessly as their status symbols were dragged away to a dirty impound lot across town. Some of them were furiously dialing their phones, calling spouses, calling the school, calling anyone who would listen. But there was nothing they could do. The signs were posted clearly at the entrance. Private property. Unauthorized vehicles will be towed at owner's expense. I had the law on my side, and I had Mike on my side. One guy actually tried to bribe Mike. He pulled out a thick leather wallet and offered Mike $500 cash right on the spot to just drop his car. Mike took the toothpick out of his mouth, looked at the money, and laughed that horrible grinding laugh. He said, "Buddy, the impound fee is $400, the storage fee is $100 a day, and the release fee is $200. You are going to need more cash." Then he signaled his driver to haul the guy's sports car away. It took them less than an hour to clear the entire driveway. 15 luxury cars gone. The only thing left was a group of stunned, silent parents standing on my driveway with absolutely nowhere to go. They had to call expensive rideshare services to come pick them up. I watched Brenda get into the back of a beat-up compact economy car that smelled like stale cigarette smoke. The look of pure defeat on her face was a masterpiece. She refused to look up at my window as she drove away. The aftermath was glorious. The impound lot charged them a fortune to get their cars back. Some of them had to wait until the next day because the lot closed at 5:00, meaning they incurred overnight storage fees. A few of them tried to complain to the police, but the officers looked at my posted signs, looked at my security camera footage proving they willingly drove past the signs, and told the parents they were lucky I did not press trespassing charges. The school administration eventually sent me a very stiffly worded letter, apologizing for the inconvenience and stating they had sent a strict email to all parents regarding parking rules. I framed that letter. It hangs in my hallway right next to the remote control for my gate. If you are ever dealing with people who refuse to respect your boundaries, remember my story. Do not waste your time arguing with them. Do not rely on their non-existent sense of shame. They do not care about your feelings or your schedule or your missed flights. You have to speak their language. You have to hit them where it actually hurts. You hit their pride, their convenience, and most importantly, their wallets. You build a trap, let them walk right into it, and then you shut the gate. Trust me, it is the best feeling in the world. Drink your coffee, watch the show, and let the tow trucks handle the rest. I promise you, they will never park in your driveway again. And the sound of that silence after they are all gone, that is the sound of absolute victory. Have a great day, everyone, and always remember to check the towing signs before you park. You never know who might be watching from the second floor window with a remote control and a cup of really good coffee.